Daniel Parker lived in a small town in Virginia where the rhythm of life was steady, and people knew each other's names at the grocery store, the coffee shop, and even the gas station. He was not a man of loud gestures or dramatic flair. Instead, he carried himself with quiet confidence, shaped by years of reading, reflection, and a commitment to living with integrity. In his home, stacked neatly on the shelves, were volumes of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, guides that had helped him cultivate a calm strength in the face of life's storms. At his workplace, Daniel was known as reliable, someone who completed tasks on time and never sought unnecessary attention. But despite his diligence, he noticed a troubling pattern from his manager, Tom. Tom often made subtle jokes at Daniel's expense during meetings. These weren't aggressive insults, but small remarks that implied Daniel was slow, overly serious, or lacking humor. At first, Daniel brushed them off, reminding himself of the Stoic idea that insults only matter if you allow them to. Yet, as weeks turned into months, he realized that such behavior, if left unchecked, would erode respect, not only from Tom but from others who observed silently. The breaking point came during a Monday meeting when Tom laughed and said, "Daniel will probably need an extra week for this task, since we know he likes to take the scenic route." The room chuckled, but Daniel felt a line had been crossed. He remembered Marcus Aurelius's words, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Quietly but firmly, he looked at Tom and said, "I prefer we keep our communication professional. If you want results, you'll get them from me. If you want jokes, you'll have to find someone else." The room fell silent. Daniel had drawn a boundary without anger, but with clarity. That moment marked a shift in how people viewed Daniel. His co-workers, who had been unsure whether he was timid or simply patient, now saw him as someone who would not tolerate disrespect. Tom, though embarrassed, realized that Daniel was not a target for casual mockery. Daniel understood that Stoicism did not mean accepting every insult with silence. It meant responding with dignity, neither exploding in rage nor shrinking in fear. By addressing the issue calmly, he preserved his self-respect and taught others how he expected to be treated. Outside of work, Daniel faced another challenge that tested his boundaries: manipulation by an old friend named Chris. They had grown up together, played basketball in high school, and even shared road trips in their 20s. But as adulthood set in, Chris developed a habit of contacting Daniel only when he needed something. Sometimes it was money, sometimes it was help moving furniture, and other times it was requests for Daniel to use his professional contacts to get him opportunities. At first, Daniel obliged, thinking loyalty to old
friends was a duty. Yet over time, he noticed the pattern: Chris was never around unless there was something to gain. One evening, Chris called asking for a large sum of money, framed as a temporary loan. Daniel listened patiently but felt a growing unease. He recalled Epictetus's teaching: "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." The truth was, Chris had been exploiting their friendship, and Daniel had allowed it because he feared confrontation. But friendship, Daniel realized, should be built on mutual respect and support, not one-sided transactions. He took a breath and said, "Chris, I value friendship, not transactions. If this relationship is only about what I can give, then it is not a friendship I can continue." Chris reacted with frustration, accusing Daniel of being selfish and cold. In the past, such words might have pierced Daniel's heart, making him second-guess his decision. But now he remained steady, understanding that guilt was Chris's tool of control. He calmly replied, "I wish you well, but I cannot keep playing this role." Chris hung up angrily, and Daniel felt the weight of loss. Yet beneath that loss was a deeper peace, the kind that comes when one acts in alignment with values rather than fear. Stoicism had taught him that letting go of unhealthy ties was not cruelty, it was clarity. Not long after, Daniel encountered dishonesty close to home. His neighbor, Mark, approached him one afternoon with a seemingly harmless request. Mark had papers in hand asking Daniel to sign a property adjustment that, according to Mark, was just to fix some technical mapping error. Daniel, cautious by nature, asked to review the papers. Upon closer inspection, he realized the change would shift the boundary line slightly, giving Mark an extra strip of land while shrinking Daniel's yard. It was a small piece of property, but the dishonesty behind it felt enormous. Daniel knew many people might shrug and sign, thinking it wasn't worth the trouble to argue with a neighbor. But he recalled a Stoic principle: tolerating dishonesty, no matter how small, was like opening a door to greater corruption. With steady composure, he handed the papers back to Mark and said, "I won't sign this. I won't be part of anything dishonest, no matter how minor it may seem." Mark's expression hardened, his friendliness vanishing, but Daniel stood unmoved. He would rather live with a cold neighbor than compromise his principles. The incident lingered in Daniel's mind for days, not because he regretted his choice, but because it revealed how common dishonesty had become in everyday life. Many people excused lies as little white lies or business as usual. But Daniel understood that character was not defined by grand gestures. It was shaped in small decisions when no one was watching. Each time he refused dishonesty, disrespect, or manipulation, he was practicing the daily discipline of Stoicism, reinforcing the walls of his inner fortress. His coworkers began to notice changes in him too. He wasn't louder or more aggressive, but he carried a presence that discouraged casual mockery. Chris eventually stopped contacting him, leaving Daniel with fewer friends but stronger peace of mind. And Mark, though distant, no longer attempted to deceive him. In each case, Daniel had faced behaviors that could easily corrode one's spirit if tolerated. Instead of reacting with anger or despair, he had responded with calm firmness, proving that one could uphold dignity without becoming cruel. Daniel often reflected on these experiences during his evening walks through town. He would pass by the quiet streets, the familiar houses, the small-town diner with its neon sign flickering against the night. In those quiet moments, he repeated to himself the lessons he had lived: never tolerate disrespect because it undermines dignity, never allow manipulation because it drains your energy, and never accept dishonesty because it corrupts the soul. These were not just philosophical ideas, they were practical shields against the erosion of self-respect. Sometimes younger colleagues or neighbors would ask Daniel how he stayed so calm. "Don't those things get under your skin?" they would ask. He would smile gently and answer, "They only get under your skin if you let them." The trick is to know what is in your control. You can't stop people from trying to disrespect you, manipulate you, or lie to you. But you can decide whether you tolerate it. I choose not to. The simplicity of his words struck people more deeply than lectures or sermons could. In time, Daniel realized he was not just living Stoicism for himself, but also modeling it for others. People respected him not because he sought authority, but because he embodied it. He showed that boundaries could be drawn without cruelty, that strength could exist without aggression, and that peace of mind was built not by avoiding conflict, but by facing it with wisdom. His life became a quiet testimony to the power of Stoic principles applied in the real world. Though his challenges were not dramatic battles or heroic struggles, they were the everyday tests that most people face. Subtle disrespect, manipulative friendships, dishonest neighbors, and perhaps that was what made them even more significant. For in these small, ordinary moments, character was truly revealed. Daniel had chosen not to tolerate the unacceptable, and in doing so, he preserved the one thing more valuable than comfort